The old house on Chestnut Street was packed. Music thumped from a big speaker in the corner, shaking the floorboards and rattling the windows in their frames. Every room was filled with college kids, laughing and shouting over the noise. It was Maya's birthday party, and it felt like the whole campus had shown up to celebrate. I squeezed through the dancing crowd, looking for my friends. I found them huddled in the living room, away from the main chaos. There was Liam, always the leader, with his confident smile. Next to him were Chloe, who was nervously twisting a strand of her hair, and Ben, who was trying to balance a stack of plastic cups. They were all listening to Maya, who had a mischievous glint in her eyes.
Okay, everyone, listen up.
Maya announced, holding up her phone like a trophy.
I'm bored of just dancing. I've got a new game for us to play. It's something I heard about online, and it sounds like a lot of fun. A little spooky, but mostly fun.
She paused for dramatic effect, letting the suspense hang in the air.
What kind of game, Maya? Don't tell me it's another one of your silly board games.
Nope, nothing like that. This one is different. It's called Shhhh.
The way she whispered the name sent a little shiver down my spine, even with the loud music still pounding from the other room. A few more of our friends gathered around, drawn in by the promise of something new. The living room suddenly felt smaller, more intimate. Maya explained that the game was perfect for a night like this, a little bit scary and a little bit silly.
It's a prank call game, but with a twist.
We had all made prank calls before, back when we were younger, ordering pizzas to our grumpy neighbor's house or asking someone if their refrigerator was running. But Maya insisted this was different. This was more organized. It had rules. And the most important rule was the one that gave the game its name. You had to be absolutely silent.
A prank call game? We're not 12 anymore, Maya.
What's the twist?
The twist is the darkness. We turn off all the lights. We sit in a circle. And we make the calls in complete silence, except for the person whose turn it is. The rest of us just listen. We listen to the person on the other end of the line. We listen to their confusion, their anger, their fear.
She said that last word with a little too much excitement. I felt another chill, a real one this time. Was this really a good idea? Liam, ever the practical one, asked for the full set of rules. He liked to know what he was getting into. Maya was more than happy to explain, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, as if she was sharing a huge secret.
Okay, rule number 1. We all put our phones in a pile in the center of the circle. We go around one by one, and whoever's turn it is picks a random phone from the pile. That way, the number that shows up on the caller ID is a surprise. It keeps things anonymous and much more interesting.
It sounded simple enough, a small detail that added a layer of mystery to the whole affair.
Rule number 2 is about who we call. The person whose turn it is must scroll through the contacts of the phone they picked with their eyes closed. They just swipe their finger up and down the screen a few times and then stop. Whichever name their finger lands on, that's who they have to call. It could be someone's mom, a professor, or a random person they got the number from once and forgot about. The randomness is key. You never know who you're going to get, which makes it all the more thrilling.
This rule made me a little nervous. What if they called my grandmother, or my boss from my summer job?
Rule number 3 is the most important. This is the she part. Once the call is made, the person who made it can say only one thing. They have to whisper, "I know what you did," and then they hang up. That's it. Nothing else. No laughing, no explaining it's a prank. Just those 5 spooky words.
That's it. That's really creepy, Maya.
That's the point. It's supposed to be creepy. It's supposed to make them wonder. It's supposed to give them a little scare on a boring Friday night.
Finally, she laid out the last rule.
And rule number 4, after the call is made, everyone has to stay completely silent for 1 full minute. No matter what. We just sit in the dark and listen. We listen for any sounds inside the house, any strange noises from outside. We just absorb the quiet.
She smiled, satisfied with her explanation.
So who's in? Sounds awesome.
One by one, everyone else nodded. Even me. The party music seemed to fade into the background. The game was about to begin. And I had a feeling this was a night we wouldn't forget. Maya flicked the switch, and the living room plunged into darkness. The only light came from the faint glow of the street lamp outside, casting long, distorted shadows across the walls. We all sat in a circle on the floor, a pile of smartphones glowing ominously in the center. The air grew thick with anticipation. It was suddenly much quieter, the party and the other rooms feeling a million miles away. Maya whispered, her voice cutting through the silence. She reached into the pile, her hand hovering over the phones before she snatched one up. Her face was illuminated by the screen as she followed her own rule, closing her eyes and swiping through the contacts. Her finger landed on a name.
Professor Albright.
She whispered to the group, and a few of us stifled a giggle. Professor Albright was our ancient history professor, a man who still used chalk and a blackboard. Maya pressed the call button, and we all held our breath as the phone began to ring on speaker. 1 ring, 2 rings. On the third, a grumpy voice answered.
Hello, who is this?
Maya leaned close to the phone.
I know what you did.
She whispered, her voice sounding surprisingly sinister in the dark. Then she immediately ended the call. A wave of silent laughter rippled through our circle. Ben went next. He picked up Chloe's phone and after a moment of blind scrolling, landed on a contact named Pizza Palace. We all had to bite our lips to keep from laughing out loud. He made the call and a tired-sounding voice answered.
Pizza Palace, what's your order?
He whispered dramatically. There was a pause on the other end, and then the person just said,
Okay, dude.
and hung up. This time we couldn't hold it in. As soon as Maya's 1-minute silence rule was over, the circle erupted in hushed giggles. The game was fun. It was harmless. It was Liam's turn. He grabbed a phone from the pile, it turned out to be mine, and closed his eyes. He swiped up and down, his thumb finally stopping on a number that didn't have a name attached to it. It was just a string of digits.
Perfect, a total stranger.
He shrugged and pressed the call button. The sense of fun was still there, but calling a complete unknown felt different. It felt a little riskier. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. We waited, our smiles fading slightly. Just as Liam was about to hang up, someone answered, but there was no voice, only silence. The line was dead quiet, not even the sound of breathing.
Hello?
Liam said, breaking the rule for a second. Still nothing, just an unnerving, empty silence on the other end of the line. He looked around at us, his confident smile gone, replaced by a look of confusion. He leaned in and whispered the spooky line into the phone.
I know what you did.
He waited a moment, but there was no response. It was like talking into a void. He finally pressed the red button to end the call, and the screen went dark, plunging us back into near total blackness. The room felt colder somehow. We began our 1 minute of mandatory silence, but this time, it didn't feel like part of a game. The silence felt heavy, oppressive. The usual creaks and groans of the old house seemed louder now. The thumping bass from the party in the other room felt distant, like it was happening in another world. I could hear Chloe's breathing, quick and shallow next to me. I strained my ears, listening. Listening for what? I wasn't sure. But the silence from the phone call had put us all on edge. It was as if that emptiness had leaked out of the phone and into the room with us. Suddenly, a floorboard creaked upstairs, loudly. It wasn't the sound of someone walking, just a single sharp crack that cut through the quiet. Everyone flinched. Liam shot a glance toward the ceiling.
It's just an old house.
He whispered, trying to sound reassuring, but his voice wavered. We all knew people were upstairs at the party, but this sound was different. It sounded deliberate. It sounded close. Then we heard another noise, a soft scratching sound. It seemed to be coming from the window right behind Ben. Scratch, scratch, scratch like fingernails dragging slowly down the glass. Ben scrambled away from the window, his eyes wide with terror.
Did you guys hear that?
He stammered. We all had. The minute of silence was over, but no one spoke. The fun had evaporated completely, replaced by a thick, cold dread. The party music suddenly cut out. Not just in our room, but the entire house. The abrupt silence was deafening. All we could hear was the pounding of our own hearts. That last call. It wasn't a prank anymore. We had called someone, or something. And now, I had the terrible feeling that whatever was on the other end of that silent call knew exactly where we were. The sudden total silence was more terrifying than any noise. The house, which had been buzzing with life and music just moments before, was now as quiet as a tomb. We were frozen in our circle on the floor, just staring at each other in the gloom. The faint moonlight from the window was the only thing that kept us from being in complete darkness.
What happened to the music? Chloe whispered, her voice trembling.
No one had an answer. It wasn't just that the music stopped. It felt like all the sound in the world had been sucked away. We couldn't even hear the chatter from the dozens of other people who were supposed to be in the house.
Maybe the power went out on that speaker, Liam suggested, but he didn't sound convinced.
It was impossible. How could 50 people just vanish without making a sound? There were no goodbyes, no shouting, no car doors slamming. They were just gone. Panic started to set in. Ben scrambled to his feet. S3, Media Group, young man standing up in fear in silent house, echoing empty living room at night at stock at distribute _ equally. They're gone, he said, his voice a hollow echo in the silent house. Everyone is gone, narrator. Media Group, cautious teenager slowly approaching living room door in dark house at stock at distribute _ equally. He stood up slowly, cautiously, and crept toward the living room door. He pushed it open a crack and peered into the hallway. We all watched him, holding our breath. His shoulders sagged and he turned back to us, his face pale.
This isn't funny, Maya. What did you do? He accused, his voice rising.
Maya looked just as scared as the rest of us. I didn't do anything, it's just a game.
But it wasn't just a game anymore. We were alone in this big, creaky house. The doors were all closed. The windows were dark. The scratching sound had stopped, but the memory of it lingered, making the hairs on my arms stand up. It felt like we were in a bubble, cut off from the rest of the world. The house was no longer a party, it was a trap. I pulled out my own phone, my hands shaking as I tried to turn on the flashlight. My screen lit up, showing no signal. No service, I said, my heart sinking. One by one, the others checked their phones. It was the same for everyone. No bars, no Wi-Fi, no way to call for help. We were completely disconnected. The silence pressed in on us again, heavier than before. And then, from the pile of phones still in the center of the floor, one of them lit up. A text message had come through. It was on the phone Liam had used for the last call. The message had only one word: found. The word found glowed on the screen, a single terrifying beacon in the dark room. We all stared at it, unable to process what it meant.
Found who found us? How?
The phone belonged to me, but the message wasn't from anyone I knew. It was from the same unknown number Liam had called just a few minutes ago.
A cold wave of fear washed over me. They knew we were here. They had my phone number, and now they were letting us know that the game of hide and seek was over. We weren't the pranksters anymore. We were the ones being hunted.
It's just a stupid prank. Someone at the party is messing with us. They saw us playing and decided to scare us. But how could they have made everyone else disappear? How could they have cut off our cell service?
His explanation felt thin and weak against the thick blanket of fear that was suffocating us. As he was talking, a shadow in the corner of the room moved. It wasn't a trick of the light. It detached itself from the deeper darkness and seemed to stretch, elongating like a twisted figure.
Look,
We all whipped our heads towards the corner. For a split second, I saw it too. A tall, impossibly thin shape that was darker than the darkness around it. It had no features, no face, no clothes. It was just a void in the shape of a person. But as soon as we all looked, it was gone, melted back into the normal shadows of the room.
Was it our imagination? Our fear playing tricks on us? Or was there really something in the room with us, watching from the corners?
My mind was racing. The silent call, the house emptying, the scratching at the window, the text message, the moving shadow. It was all connected. This wasn't a person playing a prank on us. It was something else, something that the game had invited in. I remembered the name of the game. Shh. It was a warning, a command. We were supposed to be quiet. We were supposed to just listen. Maybe the creature in the shadows didn't like being talked about. Maybe it didn't like being seen. The fear was no longer just a feeling. It was a living thing, breathing in the dark with us.
we have to get out of here now.
Ben was right behind her, fumbling for the doorknob in the dark. He turned it. Nothing happened. He rattled it again, harder this time.
It's locked! It won't open!
Liam rushed over and tried himself, putting his shoulder into it, but the heavy oak door didn't budge. It was as if it was sealed shut with concrete. We were trapped. The realization hit us all at once, a physical blow that knocked the air from our lungs. We were locked inside the house with whatever that shadow was. We all ran, stumbling over furniture in the darkness, a frantic, terrified herd. We spilled into the kitchen, which was even darker than the living room. The air was cold and smelled faintly of old spices. Liam found the back door and twisted the handle. Locked. He slammed his fist against it in frustration.
The windows!
I shouted, pointing to the large window over the kitchen sink. Ben and Liam rushed to it, trying to force it open. It was painted shut, sealed tight, every window, every door. We were prisoners. Defeated, we huddled together in the center of the kitchen. The silence of the house was back, pressing in on us. My heart hammered against my ribs. What did it want from us? Why was it trapping us here? Then it happened again. A phone chimed from the living room. We all froze, our blood turning to ice. It was the sound of another text message arriving. Slowly, as if drawn by an invisible string, we walked back into the living room. The pile of phones was still on the floor. A different phone was lit up this time. It was Chloe's. We crept closer and looked at the screen. It was another message from the same unknown number. This one was longer.
It's your turn, Chloe.
My stomach lurched. The game. It wasn't over. It was forcing us to keep playing. Before any of us could react, Chloe's phone started dialing a new number all by itself. We watched in horror as the screen displayed, calling, Mum. Chloe let out a choked sob. The game wasn't just trapping us in the house. It was trapping us within its own twisted rules, and it had just chosen its next player. The phone rang, the sound echoing unnaturally loud in the dead quiet house. Chloe stared at the screen, her face a mask of pure terror.
Don't answer, Mom. Please don't answer.
She whispered, her hands clasped together as if in prayer. But on the fourth ring, the call connected. A sleepy, gentle voice filled the room.
Chloe, honey, is everything okay? It's so late.
It was her mother. The voice was so normal, so warm, it felt like it belonged to another universe, a safe world far away from this house of shadows and fear. Chloe opened her mouth to scream for help, to tell her mum what was happening, but no sound came out. She clawed at her throat, her eyes wide with panic. She couldn't speak. It was like the game was physically holding her voice hostage. The rule was that only the designated words could be spoken. The rest was silence. Shh.
Chloe, can you hear me? What's wrong?
Helpless tears streamed down Chloe's face as she struggled against the invisible force that was silencing her. We could only watch, frozen in our own fear, as the game exerted its terrible control.
I know what you did.
The words hung in the air, monstrous and cruel. On the other end of the line, there was a sharp intake of breath, then a choked sound, and then silence before the line went dead. Chloe collapsed to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. The game had used her. It had twisted something pure and safe, a call to her mother, into an act of psychological terror. We were no longer players, we were puppets, and something sinister was pulling the strings. Suddenly, all the phones in the pile on the floor lit up at once. Their screens glowed with a new message from the unknown number. It appeared on every single phone, addressed to all of us. Now you all know. Let's play again. The phones then began to ring simultaneously, each one calling a different random contact. The room filled with a cacophony of ringtones, a horrifying symphony of the game taking full control. It was no longer taking turns. It was coming for all of us at once. We were completely trapped, not just in the house, but in an endless, nightmarish cycle of the game. The chaos of a dozen ringing phones was overwhelming. It was a digital assault, each ringtone a fresh wave of terror. We scrambled to silence them, but they wouldn't turn off. The calls went to voicemail, one after another, and then the phones started dialing new numbers on their own. The game was in a frenzy. It was calling our parents, our friends, our professors, turning our own contact lists into a weapon against us. We were huddled together, a small island of terror in a sea of noise and glowing screens. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The technology we used every day had turned against us, becoming a conduit for something malevolent.
We have to destroy the phones.
It was our only chance. If the phones were the source, we had to eliminate them.
Ben grabbed the nearest one and threw it against the wall. It shattered, but the screen kept glowing, the call still connected.
I grabbed a heavy book from a shelf and brought it down on another phone. The screen cracked, but it too remained lit, a ghost in the machine. It was useless. The game wasn't in the phones anymore. It was in the house. It was in the air. It was all around us. The phones were just its mouthpiece. As the night dragged on, the house began to play with us. Whispers echoed from empty rooms. Doors would creak open and slam shut on their own. We saw the tall, thin shadow flickering at the edges of our vision, always just out of focus, a constant, menacing presence. The game never stopped. The phones would fall silent for a while, lulling us into a false sense of hope, only to erupt again, forcing us to listen to the confused and frightened voices of our loved ones. We were exhausted, our minds and bodies worn down by hours of relentless fear. We could only wait for the sun, praying that daylight would break the spell.
Finally, through a crack in the curtains I saw it. A faint grey light, morning.
The phones fell silent, this time for good. The house grew still. The oppressive atmosphere seemed to lift, ever so slightly. We crept to the front door, and Liam cautiously turned the handle. It clicked open. We were free. We stumbled out onto the porch, blinking in the early morning light. The street was quiet and peaceful. It was over. On the inside of the front window, drawn in the condensation, was a single, freshly written word: shh. The game wasn't over. It was just waiting for the next night. But as we looked back at the house, we saw something that made our blood run cold.